All right, welcome to another episode of Comic Book Squares. We just want to remind everybody about our big contest for 2023. We're going to help find a new writer in comic books. We're partnered with Dream Foundry on this, and just remember the deadline is the end of September to get your stories in. So to kick the show off, my name's Shane.
I'm Paul.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Mike. Let's get this show started.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to our newest episode of Comic Book Squares. For this episode, we got a returning guest, Dan Membiela, and from Foreign Press Comics, we have Kylar Merrell. Dan is the writer and creator of indie comic books like The Good Agent and Under God. So we'll discuss some recent or upcoming projects with both Doug and Kylar. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Dan, why don't you go ahead and kick us off? Let us know what you've been working on.
Hey, Paul, thanks very much. First off, I want to say thank you very, very much for making space for us on your show. We really appreciate you being there and having us on. So thank you very, very much.
You betcha.
So I'm returning. We covered Under God's crowdfunding before.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're here, your family. So like pass me the breadsticks, and now Band of Bards has picked up Under God, and Under God will be in the April previews. And it'll be at your local comic shop in June if you ask your local comic shop in April to reserve a copy for you. It's super important. So I'm just very excited that there's going to be now. I mentioned in our earlier interview that there was bonus material that I had as a stretch goal, but we didn't make it. Well, all that bonus material is now added to the Band of Bards edition. So it's going to be a really nice looking book. I'm very happy about it.
That's fantastic. Hey, what's that release date again? April 15th, you said?
It's going to be in the April previews. So that means it'll be in stores in June. But the only way to get it at your local comic shop in June is to ask them for it in April.
That's it.
You must
make sure you order that.
You must order it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a good point, because a lot of folks don't know how to find what's coming up, and previews normally handles, the larger publishers. There are some other sites. I use League of Geeks as one, and there's a few others where some of the Kickstarter and some of the more independent books can be found. But those release dates are always, they're always moving. A lot depends on that. So that's great news. I'm glad you got something locked in and you got something, ready to hit the shelves. That's awesome. So yeah, congrats on that. So Kylar, go ahead. Let us know what you've been working on.
So glad to be here. I'm Kylar Merrell. Like you said, Foreign Press Comics is kind of my jam. It's kind of where I post all my comics. Lately, I've just been working on. Sorry, my cat just jumped in my lap. Right now I'm here to talk about kind of one of the big things I'm working on is it's called Comics from the Kitchen. It's a cookbook comic anthology. It'll be actually coming out in like the end of May. We'll be launching on Zoop. So that's kind of the big thing I've been doing. I have, a couple other projects. Everything's on Foreign Press Comics, but like I have a web comic that's been coming out called Peter the Fistronaut. Just a lot of other little things here and there. That's just I'm just working on a little menagerie of things right now. Working on a couple anthologies. Working on some stuff of my own. Been drawing this weekend. So yeah, just off to a good start, I guess.
That's pretty awesome. And you found a way. I think this is a first in a year we've been doing this. Somebody found a way to slip in the word menagerie into the show. So congrats first. So I guess and hopping back over with Dan. So can you tell us a little bit about the Band of Bards? And obviously it'll be in previews, and that's coming pretty soon. Next month. But what can you tell us maybe to kind of get folks kind of ready so they know what they're looking for, kind of know what the maybe what the main storyline is?
Yeah. So Band of Bards is, it's Tim and Chris, and they're really great guys. And there's a bigger team also. So I apologize for whoever I'm omitting. But they're an indie comics publisher. I believe their slogan is "Comics Doing Good," and they crowdfunded several of their titles initially, and now they've moved to. They're still doing some crowdfunded works, like for instance, Amongst the Stars is is on Kickstarter right now. And but now they have titles that are just straight to previews. So like Hush Ronin just recently came out. That's a really lovely book. They have Final Gamble, which actually that's the comic that I have flipped here. So just a lot of diverse indie titles, and they're just really nice looking books, and they're really, really good people to work with. So I'm very, very grateful and happy that Under God is going to be in the Band of Bards umbrella. So that's exciting for me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I know, last time, we talked, or last time I was on with you, at least, there was always some irons in the fire. You're always waiting for something to happen. So, glad to hear that it finally did for you. Kylar, one of the questions I have for you, and I usually ask this of most creators, is, do you do everything? Are you writing? Are you sketching things out? Are you doing your own, everything? Do you have some collaborators, or how's your, how's Foreign Press working?
It depends on excuse me. It depends on the book. I consider myself primarily a writer, but like two of the one shots that we have out in one of the series is all mine. I wrote, drew, lettered the whole thing. The only thing I haven't done is on our 2 one shots. Valkyrian and Terminal, I don't color them. I have a colorist. He's from Brazil, Eros Donardi. He's a really great guy, really great colorist. And so he's done that for me. But I've done everything else. And it kind of just depends on what I'm doing. Like lately I've have a project that I've been drawing that I'm kind of trying to submit, see who else, submit somewhere else, just because I got a lot of irons in the fire myself. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to add another thing to my plate at the moment, but I might. We'll just see how that goes. But yeah, so I do a little bit of everything. In the Comics from the Kitchen anthology, I have one that I did everything for. I even colored it myself. But then like we do have other series that are coming out like into the end of this year and into next year that are completely from other people. And so that I've just kind of done editorial work on a little bit, but it's just all other writers, artists, everything like that. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It's funny. We talked to we've talked to a lot of creators, and we've had we just released a couple of new episodes, and one of the creators we spoke to might be a name you guys are familiar with, Mike Deodato Jr. He's worked for Marvel, DC, Image, all that. And one of the books that I liked the best that he did, one of my favorites was obviously there was, well, I should say 2 in terms of independent. He started with the company AWA, that Axel Alonso started for when he broke away. And it's a book called Not All Robots. And it's fantastic. And if you guys have a chance, you can pick it up. You can pick up the trade, I think. Fantastic book. But one of my favorite, mainstream, maybe hero oriented books he did was Savage Avengers, where it just got a menagerie of characters all together twice in one show. Take that, Shane. No, but we all read different books, and me, Shane, Ben, and Mike, and occasionally, we'll bring up a book and we're like, yeah, I actually read that one too, and Savage Avengers is one of those ones that everybody can jump on because there's characters in there that are just a mishmash of everything. And the reason I bring this up is because Mike lives in Brazil. Okay, he doesn't even live in the United States. So he's been conducting all of his business, doing all of his work remotely, like forever almost. I mean, almost probably since, the beginning when he got in to the business. He said he's been to the States maybe a few times, but so it's funny because I think, the pandemic and then technology and all this other stuff kind of mishmash together, and it allows creators to do what you guys are doing. Is you don't have to sit in the same room. It doesn't have to be the Marvel method, right? We're all sitting in a meeting room talking and trying to figure out what path we want to take. You guys can create something and kind of take it your own way. And so, Kylar, what I would ask you is, so if you've done everything, let's say for, a few items, you've done the script, you've done the art, you've done everything. What's it like working with someone else? And the kind of the part 2 of that question is, when you're writing, you kind of have a vision in your head of what you want it to look, or what, what you think it, okay, when I'm writing it, this is what I think it's probably going to look like. And if you're talented and you can draw it as well, you know exactly what it's going to look like. When you hand that over to somebody else and they draw it, how's that collaboration work for you? Is there kind of a back and forth, like, well, can you change this a little bit, change that a little bit? Or do you usually get back kind of, what you were thinking, what you were expecting? Is there a discussion beforehand? Talk a little bit about how that works.
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the best things about comics and about like doing anything collaborative is the fact that by choosing to work with someone, I know that I'm bringing in their vision as well. So like one of the things that I just wrote that I'm currently pitching around is I am working with an artist, John Mark Towson or Towson. I'm not sure if I pronounced his last name. I'm sorry, dude. But anyway, he it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't the style I initially thought of for the book, but I saw his work. I really liked it. I thought it could fit, and it's been really good. There's a sense of realism that I didn't, in my head for the book, I pictured something more actiony and not as realistic and like the way it's colored and rendered and everything. But I think that actually does it a lot better, and it actually brings a whole sense of something else to it. And every once in a while there are things like, hey, I really think that this character's face looks a little weird here. I think that, hey, he should be, this, make sure that it's, this feels more sad and it shouldn't feel more angry. Something like that, like just little notes every once in a while. But for the most part, I think that's the best thing about working with someone else is I can be like, hey, do your thing, and you can interpret it how you want to interpret it, because that's why I'm bringing someone else on.
And that, what, that's a cool point. And I appreciate you saying that, because I think a lot of times, we talk to a lot of creators, and if you're the initiator of the project, a lot of times, there's a feeling that maybe I need to spearhead, or I need to guardrail it. I need to protect it. This is kind of my thing. But if you allow some of those other ideas to flow, I mean, it's easy to be a taskmaster, right? And say, no, I really need it to be this. I said 3 fingers, not 2, and I said a claw coming out of the eyeball, it's like, okay, man, just, let me give you a couple of, it's kind of like, I think of the George Lucas going into the monster creator lab when all those guys were making all the alien creatures, and he was like, I need him to be hairier. I need him to have a bigger snout. It was like, hey man, let the big dogs eat. These guys know what they're doing. So
yeah, that's why you, I was going to say, that's why you pick a collaborate, or that's why you pick a collaborator that you trust and that whose work you want to see, who you want to see expand your work.
Yeah, and if you trust them and they trust you, you're going to see a synergy probably develop. Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, I just wanted to piggyback in on the same question, because when you posed the question, and I don't know if this is a universal experience, but you said that if you're drawing it and writing, if you're writing it and drawing it, then you know exactly what it's going to look like. And I tweeted actually just recently, because I'm working on a new project now that I'm writing and drawing, and I said, to writer artists, if you write with your artist brain, kudos, because I definitely don't. And I'll look at my own script and then say, I mean, yes, structurally for the story, that all makes sense. That's not going to work right. Like now that I'm drawing it, I rethink like, oh, wait a second. Like I'm actually going to add an extra panel here to break it, or like this is moving too slow. I'm going to condense that, or I have this as they do this and they do that. I can show that all in one shot. Like the structurally writing, at least for me, it's not incorrect. I'm writing it, but then when I draw it, I think like, oh, drawn this way wouldn't look as good as if I draw it this other way. Like, so
it's like
I don't know if that's universal.
And that makes sense. You think about the movie storyboard, right? And a lot of times, you don't see those before the movie. You'll see them afterwards, and they'll have, like we've seen the Star Wars, and we've seen, the Indiana Jones, and some of the other movies out there. You've seen the storyboards afterward, and you're like, I don't really ever remember seeing. There was a scene like that, but it didn't really. That's not what it looked like in the movie. And I think that was just, again, the storyboard is just to sort of set the tone, and maybe that, like you're saying, Dan, if you're drawing with your writer's brain, maybe it's more of a storyboard. If you're writing with your drawer, with your artist brain, it's easier to conceptualize it, right? Because the artist has to create motion, momentum, emotion, all that. When you're writing it, you can describe that stuff. That's not the same as drawing it that way. And like Kylar, to your point, you said, like, I need that guy's face to be sad or not sad. He kind of looks bummed and he's not, there's too many shadows, he kind of looks like he's, ready to, drink a bottle and, go get a belt and go to the closet. And it's like, nah, man, he's actually happy about this, Why does he look like he's ready to jump out the third floor, But, and so that's just one of those things. That's why I was saying about the synergy, you guys get that going on, and a good artist will be able to take a script and interpret it, well, but it takes a while. I think. I don't think you could work with somebody right off the bat, and sometimes there's a synergy, but I think it would vary project to project. I mean, think about how many times Marvel and DC have rebooted their characters. You see a group of creators working on a story for a while, and then after a while, it just starts to go, So what do? Bomb it. Hey, number one, jumping on point. You're like, again, 9,000 Amazing Spider-Man number ones later, and I love the character, but, you could reboot the shit out of it, but, it's still, Spider-Man is what brings people to the table, right? So get a good creative team and it'll sell.
Definitely. There's also those books where they're gonna go out and then they just say, like, well, let's just go nuts, and it's like, oh my, why wasn't this book this way the whole time? Like
they're
even
just gonna blow it out. Yeah, right.
Shows do that also when it's like, this is our last season, we're going nuts. Like, oh, I wish you had gone nuts from the beginning. This is great. Like, just that whole don't give a it's like YOLO, man. Just throw everything at the see what happens. Well, what was kind of like that was. And I saw an article the other day, that I think they've started or they're going to start soon, like the Rick version of Walking Dead, right? The Rick series, miniseries, whatever it is. And it's just, and I thought about that because, I followed the Walking Dead, in comic form and then, in show form. And there were some rough seasons to get through, right? And eventually, what did they do? They changed the creative team. It took a couple of years, I think, for, and of course, it's not that simple in old Hollywood land. But, they changed the creative team. And all of a sudden, like the last couple of seasons were like totally bonkers. It was like, I'm like, where was this like 4 seasons ago? They go into a graveyard and zombies are digging up out of the grave. I'm like, thank you. That's what I needed. I didn't know I needed that. But yeah, I needed that. Thank you. George Romero, right? Let's go back. So yeah, I think the advantage that it may not feel like an advantage, but I want to give you guys props. Working in the independent arena, you really are able to control your stories, your characters, your storylines, and the art and all that. Obviously, there's a lot of folks that want to work in comics who may not get to that Marvel DC level. And let's face it, everybody that gets there. Probably doesn't think it is what they thought it was. And I think being creative, there's been a lot of, Image Comics wouldn't exist. AWA wouldn't exist if you didn't have established creators going, I really want to do my own thing. I don't want to be told what I got to do for the next 12 issues, right? I really would like my own story and just like you guys say, well, like you were saying, Dan, you just want to blow it all out. Well, you can do that. It's your story. If you want to just go complete Tarantino, you can do it. And you were asking about Band of Bards. So my only in our other interview, I mentioned that like in the 90s, I wrote some comics for some indie comics companies, and they were like, just imagine 90s indie comics. It was like all bad girl vampire stuff, like and like. That was creator owned, but it was, the guy I was working for creator owned. So like, it was very much like, if I tried to do anything nuanced, it was like, no, you just gotta show all the stuff. Band of Bards is very much just like early on I said, oh, I have the opening pages in a certain order because just the way it breaks, and I have like chapter headings. is it okay if we, and they were like, that's how the book needs to look. Like it's very much a creator owned experience. They're not there saying like, oh, no. This is not matching the, the Band of Bards house flavor. You have to change it this way or that way. It's your book, and that's what you're creating. So that's excellent experience.
It's got to be a great feeling. Great feeling. So, hey, Kylar, one thing that you mentioned something. Did you say the magic word spring break a little earlier?
Yes, I did.
So are you in college then?
No, I'm a teacher.
Oh, a teacher. Okay. I mean, you look like a young guy, so I figured. So a teacher, huh? So what grade?
Currently fifth grade. Currently fifth grade science. It's rough.
That's got to be, that's...
Paul and I are that age where everyone could be a college student. Like, just anyone could come up to us and tell us they're a college student. We're like, what are you majoring?
I go to the gym. I live in a college town, and I go to the gym at the college, and then I blend in. I fit. Like, I had someone be like, ask me like what year I was one time, and I was like, I'm 26. I'm out of here. I've been out of here for a while. Like, I'm just here to work out.
Yeah, Shane and some of the other friends that I grew up with, we're all sitting around going, oh boy, high school graduation. Ooh, boy, that was like forever ago. Just time has a way of passing you by, So there's this show on right now. I don't know if you guys watch this kind of stuff, but if you have Vice TV or the Vice channel, it's called Icons on Earth. I think that's what's called, Icons on Earth, something like that. And last year they did a special, like a Star Wars series, and it was like, I don't know, like, I hate to fib here in recording mode, but I don't know, maybe it was like, 4, 5, 6 episodes, something like that, maybe a few more. Anyway, they just started one this past week, and it's Marvel, and it said Phase Zero, and it was basically like the Martin Goodman back in the 30s started when Stan had just gotten out of the army and he got a job at Marvel when it was just changed over from Timely Comics to Marvel, and how everything got started and all that. And just when we were talking about the whole, like, just blow out whatever you want to do, you remember that's what Stan's wife told him he was going to quit. Remember in 1960, he was just like, that's it. I want to be a serious writer. This comic thing is dying. It's, the government's starting to overreach into it and say it's the work of the devil, whatever. His wife was like, then since you're quitting anyway, why don't you just do whatever you want to do? Lo and behold, Fantastic Four, right? So, I mean, there's something to be said for just saying, pulling the YOLO card and doing whatever, So that's pretty awesome. But yes. So that's kind of where, you guys, like I say, you guys have that advantage. You don't have anybody directing you which way you go next. Yeah.
We are the director. Like, we get to make every choice from the top down. It's all just whatever I want to do. And it's like one of my comics is it's called Outlaw Country, and it's kind of like my ode to country music. I'm a country music fan. I know that that's a hated, people don't like it, whatever. Haters can suck it.
Music's music,
anyway,
right?
I'm a fan, but anyway, it's just like my love, and I think it's a good story too. It's not just like, look at all the music things I put in here, but like, I can do that because it's mine, and I can do whatever I want. And so like, even if someone else isn't like a fan or doesn't like it, like I'm gonna make my comic, and someone's gonna like it.
Yep. Right. And we've talked about that with other creators. We're never going to be negative. We may say, hey, it wasn't for us. It didn't, didn't hit us, whatever. But we can appreciate good story, good art, the effort and the enthusiasm that goes into it. I mean, hey, when I was a kid, when I was in grade school, I drew my own Wolverine comic and sold it to a guy for $2. So I'm a publisher, all right. I mean, that was 1981, but hey, still, all right. Yeah, that book is out there, probably not, but whatever. So, but that's the thing, right? You guys are doing it, right? And and Kylar, I mean, and you're in your role as a science teacher, you kind of got your pulse on these kids that are coming up, and. The reason I bring that up is because I don't know about you guys. I go in a comic shop. I don't see kids that age. When I was Man, I was going into comic shops as soon as there were comic shops, and I became aware of them as a little kid. My mom would drop me off and say, "I'll see you in an hour," and I'm like, "Make it 2," you know. And now, I go myself every Wednesday, and I'll go even on the weekend if I miss something, or I'm like, I do the whole look through. I don't know, put it back. 2 days later, it's still with me. Hell with it. Saturday, I'll go back and I'll be like, hell with it, pick it up off the shelf. But I don't see kids in there. It's not. And the big companies got to know that is no longer their target audience. Otherwise, they wouldn't be charging $4.99, $5.99, $6.99. Kids don't have that kind of money, right? So you see kids at 5th grade, they ain't got that kind of money.
No. Well, that's just like why my both as an individual and as a publisher, just my new goal is to find things that are more kid friendly, and especially because well, for one, kid friendly, just because I did some conventions for the first time last summer, and I didn't my books aren't they're not adult, but they're not super kid friendly. A kid's not gonna see it and be like, "Oh, this is so cool." And so I was like, well, now I need to come up with something that's more that I can sell to a kid. Not that I'm trying to shill out, steal their money, but something that I can be like, hey, you will like this,
bring in new fans at that age.
Exactly.
Yeah. Bring them in. I mean,
also, to add on to that, as I'm looking at things that are not necessarily as Western comics and looking for things with a lot more manga influence. There's a story that I'm writing now that I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty sure I'm just going to do it as a manga instead. Is it a Western manga? So it's still going to flip the same way, but I'm going to do it that way because that's an art style that affects them. Cause kids walk around with, they don't have comic books, but I have plenty of kids who walk around with the volume, whatever they're called, the tankobons of the manga of Demon Slayer.
Oh, yeah, they do.
A whole bunch of stuff that's just, they have those, they don't have comics, but they got manga volumes. And so as like I said, as someone who's trying to do it for the business side, but also as the creative side and trying to reach other people, I'm looking at that for both ways.
I mean, that's smart. I mean, and you're right. When I do occasionally see a dad come in or an older brother with a kid, I'll see the kid go over to the manga stuff. They're not looking at, the other stuff on the shelf. Even at the conventions, when I've gone to the conventions in the past, that's what all the kids, if they're cosplaying, that's who they're cosplaying. Yeah, I don't even know who those characters are. I see these and I'm like, I know that's cosplay because nobody would really go out like that, but I have no idea who that character is, So, but Dan mentioned it, we're of the age where it's I can name most of the characters, but you start throwing the manga out there and I'm just like, because my kids are older. My sons are in their mid-20s, right? And they got into the MCU and all that. And they'll, if I show them a comic book, they'll look at it. They're like, oh, that's cool, Dad. And I'm like, you are your pops. I'm not going to be here forever. All right. And I'm going to leave these to you turds. So as soon as I price them out, but yeah.
Well, and
so
the
Dan,
Bronze Age comics were so all they were just really well made fiction. So my brother was 10 years older than me. So when I was 9 reading an Avengers comic, a classic, John Byrne Avengers issue that was brand new. Yeah. My brother was 10 years older and he was enjoying it just as much. It was just a well-made piece of fiction. It wasn't, I think also when we say all ages or kid friendly, then we start thinking of the neat, which are great that they're there. The niche, superhero kid books and those little those little offshoot that the big two have those, but which is awesome that those exist. But at one point, the comic was all ages, literally, because all ages would enjoy the comic and it was appropriate for all ages. But it was just a very well done piece of fiction, pulling from all other genres of fiction and elements and like a Michelini, Iron Man is written as nice as any little pulp book that you would get from the time, but now it's kind of things are edgier in the mainstream comics for like an older audience, and then this other subcategory is where the only place kids can really exist at an entry level, like unless they have someone who already is in the house with comics who can cherry pick, like no, this one would be okay or that one would be okay,
right. Well, I mean, and that stuff, that Bronze Age stuff, it was a lot of it was self-contained stories. It did go over into a second or third issue, sometimes an arc, but now everything is like a 6-issue arc. If you miss an issue in the middle, you've missed key pieces of information, and it's it's and that's the way they market it. I mean, there are issues that do almost absolutely nothing sometimes except set up the story, and it's like, look, I get it. You want to be, they like you said, Dan, they want to be edgier, they want to be more grounded, realistic, whatever, and that's great. But for $3.99 or $4.99, I want somebody getting their head bashed in. I'm sorry. I'm just, you know what I mean? Just give me something. Well, I mean, if that's what the book is.
In the Bronze Age, you could get hooked on a series. Like, you could find like a Defenders at the bottom shelf of the magazine rack at the grocery store. And then suddenly now you're a Defenders fan because the whole story was right there. And you're like, well, who's this gargoyle character? And who's, who are these people that, like who's
this Valkyrie chick? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was its own
awesome.
Weird, self-contained marketing thing where it was just like everything you need to know. And then how charming also, I mean, I know nostalgia guides our biases a lot, but my gosh, like I actually even added in the latest Good Agent issue, those little blurbs at the top of the Marvel comics where it kind of gave you like a tiny little primer of what you're, who the people are that you're about to read about. I mean, it was aimed at like, you're going to go to the grocery store and you're going to pick up your first Fantastic Four. We better tell you who these people are before you start. Like,
And that was the whole, Stan, Jack Kirby, Ditko. That was like their thing, They and remember the little letterbox up in the corner with the characters' heads and stuff like that.
Yeah, I just watched a video about that from Comic Tropes, and that's why they did that, is so people could like pick up an issue of, especially those things like Strange Tales, where it's like not a character in the title, right? And so you could be like, hey, and just because it's Iron Man on the cover, but there's also a little beast in the corner, so we know that, hey, you want a beast? You like X-Men? We get this one. And so it's like reaching out to characters that way.
Yep.
Very smart.
My only kind of humorous thing I think about that back then is a lot of times what was on the cover never even happened in the book. It would be like, the two characters fighting, and then you'd flip through and you'd be like, they didn't even see each other. Oh, that must be in the next issue, But it was like, all right, well, you got my 35 cents, damn you. But I know. I wish I would have kept everything. Dang it, man! I'm telling you. So
that's why it's valuable now, because that's why it's valuable now, because not everyone kept everything. If everyone had kept everything, it would be all worthless. So the elevator pitch for Under God is that a young woman's mission of mercy turns deadly as she learns her role in the oppression of those she meant to aid. And it's going to be in the April previews. The publisher is Band of Bards, and it'll be out in stores in June if you ask your local comic shop to order it for you in April. So that's the key part. So please look for it in the April previews.
Ask your comic book store to order it. Kylar, what you got? Anything you want
to? Let's see. Comics from the Kitchen. It's a cookbook / comic anthology. So it's like I think we're at 19 stories, 19 comics, and each one is accompanied with a recipe that is featured in the comic. And so it's if you're a fan of autobio comics, especially, this is huge for that. Almost, I'd say probably 75% of the stories in here are autobio comics, and a lot of them are told with just a lot of heart. And I'm really excited to see the rest of this come together. Like right now, we have maybe 3 or 4 stories that are completed, like 100% complete. And those are awesome, Dan's included. And so we have a ton more that are coming. I'm doing one. And so I'm just really excited. And that's coming to Zoop at the end of May. But just go to Foreign Press Comics, subscribe to our email list. That's where all the big stuff is. That's where I sometimes give discounts, give stuff away, stuff like that. There should be an exclusive comic coming to that email list soon. So just go check out foreignpresscomics.com. That's everything's on there. Go find it. Look it up.
Excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, definitely. And we'll have those links in the when the show hits YouTube and all that, we'll make sure Instagram that all the links are there too. So, well, that was a fantastic interview with Dan and Kylar. It was great to have them on the show. It's always awesome to have independent creators so they can discuss firsthand what they've been working on, what they got coming to you, what hopefully will be hitting the shelf like Dan's new project. Us, the Comic Book Squares, we really enjoy the opportunity to bring you guys something different than what's typically out there. We love to keep bringing you this kind of content, so don't forget to click the like and subscribe button below. You'll also be able to find the links for Dan's projects and for Kylar's projects for Foreign Press Comics. So also don't forget, we do have the Dream Foundry promotion going on. So if you've got some scripts, go ahead and submit them to the Comic Book Squares. Those links will be in the show notes as well. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, whether you're tuning in YouTube, on the podcast, whatever. We look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. And always look out for the little guy. Thanks.